project. And again, today we're just going to go through sort of the basics of Materio. And this is so that you can be set up for success as you're sort of playing around in your trial and ultimately making a decision about if you want to run your projects with this really, really robust system. So what I'm in right now is what we call a project. Materio is very project oriented. You'll notice our pricing is structured around projects. And that's because this is the thing that you're operating in, your team is focused on, and there's a lot of things that have to happen inside of a project. And so we want to really keep you organized in that structure. Now, the first thing that you will notice about my project that might be a little bit different about any other of the softwares you've been into is that on the right-hand side here, I do have my visuals, so I can upload floor plans and full drawing sets here. And I can also build out concept boards and product boards in Materio. So this one was built in Materio. You could also optionally upload boards that you already have from another system if you want to sort of get organized as you're starting to work on setting up your projects. And then what's different about this is that I have those visuals, but I also have the scope of work over here on the left. And I'll show you really quickly just a more built out project. That is not the built out project that I wanted to show you guys. Let's go back. This one should have more here. This is a more built out project. So you'll see that I have, status information over here in the scope of work. I have, indicators that I'm missing some specs here. I've got pictures, I've got budgets updated, and then I've got this board that I've built over here with the actual products that is linking to my scope of work. I'm going to have a lot of rich information about my project in Materio, and it's going to be organized in a really structured way. You'll notice we have categories and locations. So we'll get into that in a minute as we talk about building a project, but I just wanted to show you what this looks like and a little bit further down the line project. And then as our approvals go through a standard process, they're going to go through open client review and then approved. And you get this really great visual workspace to start managing the actual details of the project. So we're not going to get super in depth on everything in Materio, but do check that out. Do play around with building in projects. And we're going to go into now how we can actually do that. All right, so let's go back to our project here. First things first, you want to make sure that you know how to upload floor plans. And you've probably already gotten this far if you're in today's session, but I just want to call this out that this big plus button down here allows you to upload PDF documents. Now, your floor plans do need to be in PDFs. Those are not going to be live integrated with any sort of drawing software right now. Materio is not a drawing software. We're working with teams that are building these out themselves or working with architects. So we're going to upload these plans here, and you can upload, a full set at a time. This could be 30, 40, 100 pages, but it's really important to know that you can do that. And a few other things you can do is actually stack them. So if you just hold them together, it'll create a stack. This is really useful if you want to group things together. Maybe you have construction documentation together. Maybe you have an archived schematic design that you want to put together. So just know that you can archive these. You can also rename any page in here. And I definitely recommend renaming all of your floor plan pages and also naming your stacks as well. So play around with that. We do have detailed tutorials on how to create stacks, how to upload pages, how to replace pages, because as we start to mark up things on these pages, it's going to be important that we do know, hey, if this thing changed, we can upload a new version of that. And Materio is going to store that version history for you and even allow you to restore it if something were to need to be restored. So these are my visuals over here on the left. Now let's talk about organizing your project. So this scope over here is really going to be about building out probably what you're doing right now in a spreadsheet. This is going to be how are we structuring our project? How are we organizing our budget? How are we making sure that we know what goes into a project? So I'm going to go ahead and just add in a few, and you're going to do this while looking at your plan over here on the right. And you're going to go, okay, we are going to be doing our design services. We're going to be doing project management. We're going to be doing plumbing, tile. Maybe we are doing accessories in the bathroom. Let's see. And you can also just search here or type. So this is kind of a, like if I wanted to type in hardware, it's going to pull up the ones I want, but I can also just add in something custom. So maybe there's custom millwork that I want to add in. I just hit enter to save. So this is me building out the categories of work. Now you also may have seen kits. When you were starting a project in Materio or playing around with that. We're not going to go deep into kits today, but I definitely advise you to play around with the standard ones that are on our projects. These allow you to build out projects with budgets very quickly. So definitely explore playing around with those and adding in items very quickly. All right. And then also, I know as designers, sometimes we're thinking about things more from a location perspective, and that is totally fine. I just wanted to call out up here at the top of your scope right here, there's a category or location view. So I can click between the two at any moment to kind of outline and think about my scope via location or category. So I'm going to go ahead and add a few locations here. We have the bathroom, we have the laundry, and then we have the primary bedroom. I'm actually just going to call it primary bedroom. So again, I'm typing this out. I'm just hitting enter to add in a new custom location. So now that we have our structure set up, we can start to add items. I just want to highlight why having a structure is important. I think we probably all know this, but it's really important in Materio because this is going to help you later down the line. When I get ready to hand off my plumbing to my plumber to install or do rough in, I want to have that really organized in my system where I can easily get those specs and those schedules out the door quickly via Materio. So it's great to have these organized from the beginning, not only for planning purposes, but also just when it comes time to get them out. So that's really important. And locations, of course, is important because it might be the way you think. It's most likely the way your client thinks. You may even be budgeting via location. So again, we're just trying to set up our projects and the things that have to be done in a really systematized and organized way that Materio is going to utilize throughout the entire process. Okay, so now we're going to add some items. It's really important that you know how to add items. This hopefully is very straightforward for you, but I'm going to get into some of the specifics of how to add items. So if we're in the location view, you're going to click add item here, and we can simply just type. In this case, I'm going to do our floor tile, and I'm just going to hit enter. Before I do that, actually, I want to call out that in an item you have category. So you want to put it in that tile category. You also have a selection, and a selection item in Materio is going to allow you to pull product onto that item and take it through an approval and ordering process in Materio. So we want to keep that turned on for this, and we're going to hit enter. We also have our, let's say we have our tub here, and I'm actually going to throw that into plumbing. And then hit enter. Now, this is a great example of why I personally love to build out my projects in the category view because I can go, okay, plumbing, bathroom, we have faucets, we have the sinks. So I like to organize it in that way. But you can do it from either way, whichever works best for how you think. And then on top of that, I'm going to start budgeting. Now you can use our standard kits with budgets. You can, if you upgrade to our second tier, you can have custom kits where you build out a standard item library and you put in these budgets that you want to stick with. You can also just come in and type. So I'm going to do that really quick. And then we will mark these on our floor plans. And so I'm just sort of giving rough numbers. You want to be more exact about this, but I just want to show you how this works. So we've added in our budgets. We've got our default rates on here already. And now I want to make sure that I am outlining that on the floor plan. So for the tile, for example, we want to make sure we're utilizing Materials markers. And we have 4 types of markers. So I'm going to click the quantity and I'm going to hit mark plans. This is going to bring up our 4 types of markers. In this case, I'm estimating the bathroom floor tile. It's a little bit of an interesting shape, so I'm going to use the polygon tool. And because this plan is new, you will be asked to set the scale the first time that you upload and mark on a plan. Now, this is usually just done one time, so we're going to go ahead and do that together right now. I'm going to hit set scale. I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to find a dimension that I know. that is on my plans here. And I'm going to type in the feet. And if you have inches, you can do that. I'm going to go ahead and save this as the project default. If you have elevations and things later down the line that are scaled differently, you could always go in and scale that individual page before you go in and add markers. So now I'm going to come in and I'm actually going to mark my floor plans. And you can get very specific and go around these, doorways and things. But for this, I'm just going to go right here. And so this is now telling me the square footage that I need for this material. And I'm also going to go ahead and enter in my waste. So at this point, I now have a really good idea of about how much this is going to cost, about how much tile I'm going to need, and a general waste factor. So this means that I can get a budget out to my client really quickly, and also know, have my team and myself know what budget parameters I need to work in as I'm sourcing this material. Um, so we're gonna just keep going. All right, no questions yet. Again, if you have questions, drop them in the chat as I am going through this. And then next, we're gonna also connect our items over here. So we wanna make sure that like with the sinks, we've got the sinks, we're gonna mark both of them. Again, Materio is going to quantify that, right, with my markers. So we've got 2, same for the faucets. We're gonna just mark those right here. Great. And so you can see that when I use the tool to do the quantities, it's also doing the math for me of how much is needed. And the mark plans, we'll just put the tub right here for now. Great. Now, of course, there are other things that are going to go into bathroom, tub filler, etc. But I just wanted you to know kind of how this structure works. Now, the second thing that I want you to know about creating an item before we move on to selections is component items and knowing how those work. These are really powerful because it allows you to build up back end items and sort of only show one thing to your client, but have a grouping of orderable parts on the back end. So a great example of that would be actually this floor tile. Let's just say that with every floor tile, we actually want there to be the floor tile, the grout, the labor, etc. So what I did was I clicked on the estimate and then I clicked multi-component. So again, I just clicked add multiple components. And this little menu flew out right here where I could add kind of sub items. The first one is going to be probably mentally kind of what you put on the first. So this is the actual tile, right? I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to add in the grout. And then I'm going to add in the labor. And, we can say labor install. And this, I'm actually going to change the type to labor and hit save. And so you'll see that I can start to spell out exactly what is needed for this floor tile. Now your material might be, 1 unit, and you may want to make this fixed, and you can say, okay, well, it's actually 1 unit and it's $50, for that bag of grout. For the install, you may say it's $1 a square foot, or you may again have an exact amount that you get or you estimate. You can customize those by doing fixed or growth. But the cool thing is now I know exactly what's needed, and I can even use products to estimate. So I can pull in products from my library to estimate what it is going to cost. Same for tile. I can actually pull in an actual product. So maybe it's this one, and it will change the pricing here. And I can also highlight here who the labor is going to be performed by. Now, I might not have someone ready, but you can do that if you want. And that's sort of just getting ready and preparing for the project. So all of what I'm doing right now is trying to organize and really think about what's to come. Because if you can be organized in the beginning, you're going to have better success communicating with your clients about what's going on, better success communicating with your team about what they need to do and what's going on, and ultimately, a better job handing off to construction or working with your team that is construction. So I've got my scope item here. Now this is a multi-component. This is also really great because as we get into the next step where this comes in and sort of connects in materials through the orders part of our system. So all of this, if approved, will be auto drafted as a purchase order, which means I already know I've got to get those things ordered and take care of them. All right. So, any questions so far on adding items, anything that y'all have run into that you have questions on, drop those in the chat or save them for the end. But hopefully that gives you a good idea of the basics of what we can add in. I guess before we move on, I do want to add in one thing, which is we're going to showcase what it looks like to have your design services or any sort of internal labor. So in this case, I'm going to add in my design fee, and you're typically going to be doing this prior to building out your working budget. So just know we have a video tutorial on collecting money on your design fee, sending your design agreement. I definitely recommend checking that out. This is a design fee. This could be hourly, this could be flat, it doesn't matter. What we're doing here is just typing it in. And then in this case, we want to make sure that we're unchecking selection, and then we're also accounting for this as labor. And we're going to hit save. And then we're going to go ahead and type in our design fee here. Let's say it's $20,000. And in this case, we're not going to put our markup, our tax there. We can just erase those off of this one specific line item. And then we're actually going to say that we're self-performing this. So this is a great way to just indicate this is my fee, this is what we're going to be doing, and we're going to sort of self-perform it. So this is an example of a non-selection item in Materio or a service item where we're not going to need approval on this from our client. We're not going to send it through that standard approval flow. And this is going to be a lot of, construction elements like demolition or project management, right? Those don't need to go through a process with a product and an actual SKU and orderable part. Okay, let's see, I've got one in the chat here. Okay, Lindsay, thank you for throwing that in there. All right, so we have our design fee, we have our items. Again, you can go through sort of collecting a retainer on that in that video. I don't know if it's worth covering in today's training because I want to get into making sure that you understand how to clip items into your project, how to add selections to your project, because that can be really useful for a variety of things in the system. So we're going to head over to our selections workspace because this is where I like to come to look at what is needed from a design perspective. So you'll see that here we have our 4 items that we outlined. We have our budgets, we have our quantities, and this gives me a good idea of what my team needs to do or what I need to do. Now, of course, you're going to have hundreds of these depending on the size of the project, but this allows me to really know what's needed and by location. So if I'm working on a bathroom today, or if maybe I'm working on plumbing today, I can break these down and really clearly start to find out what I need. Now, in order to pull things in as product, there's a few different ways we can do that, and I'm going to go through those. So the first is if you've already added some things to your library, you can very easily just pull from your library. Because again, I was in that plumbing category and Materio knows that, it's going to drop me in here. It's also going to let me know that I'm looking for the tub. So up here at the top left, it'll just kind of remind you what you're looking for. And then I can pull in certain items. I can also look into my subgroups here. You can create these subgroups. So I can pull in, okay, here's all the tabs that I have. I love this option. I love this option. And I actually want to pull these in for my client. So I'm going to pull these in from my library. And again, that's if you've already started to build out your library. Your library is custom built by your team. You can pull in things that you use repeatedly. And then also with the new clipper, you can actually clip directly to these items. So that is one example of how to do it. The other might be if I am doing something custom or I've done a drawing for something like a custom built-in, I can simply click new product. I can add in my own photos. I can add in all of my own information and I can do this all manually. And that's great because that's really useful in some cases where you have a specific drawing or something specific that you've designed that you need your client to approve. And now let's go ahead and pull in an item for this bathroom. And you know what? I'm going to quickly add a category here. Oh, not that. I want to add a category. And I want to add in electrical because I'm going to pull in a sconce here from my clipper. Okay. And we're going to budget that really quick and just change it to 2. All right, so we have our selections and now we are ready to pull them in. Oh, you know what, guys? I don't think I made that a, There we go. I didn't make it a selection. So this is a great example. If you ever create something and you don't make it a selection, because the last one I did was a service item, we're going to default to whichever one you did last. I can just hover over this and kind of come over here and say enable client selection. So now we have a selection. Now it's going to show up in our selections workspace, and now we're ready to clip for it. All right, so I'm going to head over to a website. You may be clipping from a variety of vendors, but I just want to go over how to clip because this is important to just know how to get information into the system. So you're going to go to a website. Ideally, you're in Chrome, so you can use our Chrome extension. And we're going to go ahead and click on the Materio logo at the top right. Now you'll notice that my clipper is going to push some information to the side here and attempt to pull in certain information. Now, some of this information you may like and some of it you may not like. So you want to pay attention here about what it's pulling in and what you want it to look like. First things, I'm going to actually clip directly into my project in this case. So I'm going to actually search for my project, and then I'm going to choose the item that I want to clip it directly into, which is this sconce. So in this case, I'm bypassing my library, and I'm going to clip directly to that item. And you'll see that Materio has tried to pull in a photo for me. That's great. I may want to bring in others, so I can use click to add, and I can just go through and then choose to add certain photos. So you can actually navigate through. Maybe this is something that you really want to show your client how it's going to look mounted. That's great. And it's also going to indicate to you large, medium, or small. So just pay attention to that because as you pull those in, as your clients review, as you add them to boards, it's important that we have high quality images and they're pulling in. Now we are going to pull in client-facing name here. Again, if we're trying to hide our vendor information and we don't really want this to be searchable, we might want to edit our client-facing name. Maybe we just call this large wall light. We keep the internal name as, the actual product name. This SKU here is a little short, so I'm actually going to pull in the longer one here. So this click to add function is really great when I want to just pull information in easily. So I'm going to pull in the height. Now I actually want to pull in the width also. So I'm just going to paste it there. Optionally, you can add in that client-facing note. I'm going to clear out my internal note because I don't need that. Now, a big thing here that I want to call out as you're getting set up in Materio is the vendor contact information. So we didn't go over importing those vendor contacts, but I do want you to know that you can import a CSV of all of your contacts. And that's really helpful because we are now pulling in associated trade discounts and markups with these vendors. So you can set that up in your contacts. And then when you start to clip from these websites and you associate it with the vendor, it's going to allow you to just have that markup and that discount already baked in based on what's on the contact. This is helpful if you have administrative teams sort of clipping for you. You're not going to have to add this in. So that's really awesome. Also, if this is the first time that you're clipping, you may not have a vendor here. You can simply add a new vendor. You just need company name and website here to get that started. And then we're going to pull in custom information. Now, again, my discount is coming from my Materio contact list. My markup is coming from that list. Now, you can always customize this, but it's going to pull in that default. So that can be really helpful. We do want to make sure that we have this lead time here. It looks like this is really quick. I'm just going to put 7 days because it could ship really fast. And then I am going to add in a shipping estimate here. So we're going to say that it's 25 and I'm going to mark that up 20% just to be sure. So now I'm getting a really clear breakdown of the retail cost, what my discount is, what my markup is, my shipping, and my markup on that shipping. And the last thing about the clipper, you can come in and pull in these technical resources here. So I can come in and pull in the install guide or the spec sheet for this. This is important because if this gets approved by my client and is handed off to my electrician, I've got that install guide right there ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And then this is going to clip over here on my project. You might need to refresh to pull this up, but now you can see that this sconce is here. And it is with all those pictures that I brought in, nice and big and there for my client to approve. Okay, we are going to send these over quickly to our client. And then we're gonna we've only got 3 or 4 minutes before I want to jump into questions. So We're going to go through that next. So once we have our products ready to go, we've got them sort of spelled out here. There are two things I want to encourage you to play around with. One is going to be using a board and pulling all the selections onto the board. So we're going to just pull them on to the board. Now, typically this is going to be via room. And so you should see everything in the kitchen or everything in the bathroom and just pull them on, play around with customizing the board, adding text to the board, making it look like you want. In this case, I'm just going to do this very quickly. But this is a way that you can link to these products, right? This is actually linking to the scope of work over here on the left. And so we've got those in. So play around with that, because when you invite your client in and you send those selections over, a lot of times they like to see them all together on a board. And then when you're ready, we're going to go ahead and send this over to our client. Now, I actually am going to add my client here quickly. And you can customize the pricing visibility here. Again, we're not going to go deep on that in the basics, but if you have questions about that, you can chat our team, check out our YouTube on how to show pricing information. We're going to send this over to our client. And this is the point where we actually want our client to be invited to Materio, to have a login, because we want them to engage with us. We want them to communicate back and forth. We want them to approve things. This is a great place for them to understand what's going in on the project. And Catherine had a great example at the beginning of wanting to, have better client communications. This is exactly the way to do that. So we're going to go ahead and send this over to our client. You'll notice that Materio is letting me know that I'm missing some markup on an item. That's really important, because if I haven't put something in with a markup and my client approves it, I'm at risk for, not making that money. So that's great. In this case, I'm just going to move forward, but it's nice that it tells you that. And you want to make sure that if you see that, you go back and you adjust that before you go ahead and send that over. So it's cleared out of my open workspace, moved into client review. And this is when your client's going to get an email. They're going to approve the items. They may have come in and they may have questions for you about that. And if we view this as our client, I just want to show you, they are not seeing all the information that you're seeing, right? When they open this up, they're not seeing vendor information. They're not seeing markup. They're seeing a very cleaned up view of this item. They can also come in and communicate with you on this item, ask questions before they make decisions. So this is really helpful that they have this space to come in and talk to you about your sort of proposed items. But if you're playing catch up and you're just getting into Materio, you're adding projects, and you want to go ahead and just note that things have already been approved by your clients, you can come in and you can do that on your side as well. So I'm going to go ahead and just approve some items so that we can get this over the finish line. All right, so our items have been approved. They're moved into the approved space right here. Again, this is where you can start to take them from approved to paid and ordered, and all of that. The status is going to show up right here. All right, we're at 30 minutes after. Before I go a little deeper, I'm happy to go further. Are there any questions that anyone has, specific workflows that you want me to show you, specific questions that I can go over? If not, I can continue with payment and ordering, but I just wanted to check in and see if anybody had questions. Anybody? You can unmute, you can chat. If not, I'm going to just keep going. Are we good? Okay. Drop them in the chat if you have them, and I will check back in just a minute. So now that I have some items approved, what I want to do is actually come over to my finances tab here and make sure that I have collected money on these items before I actually go and order them. So I'm going to hit new, and I'm actually going to use a deposit. You'll notice we have quite a few different billing documents here. There's great reasons for using some of them at the beginning of your project when you're collecting payment on items, but you're not actually wanting to report that revenue. We're going to use the deposit function. So I'm going to send this over to my client. I'm going to name this, we'll call this FF&E deposit. And then I'm going to add my items from my scope of work. So you'll see that anything in Materio can be collected for here. Anything that has an estimated amount, like maybe I want to collect all the plumbing and all the electrical today, that's fine. Later on, once I get approved items, I can always go back and Materio is going to keep track of that for me. So I'm going to collect about 85%. I like to collect a little bit less so that as additional freight charges or things come in, I can add those in on my final invoice. And I'm also not going to collect my tax right now until these items are installed. So I've added these items to my deposit. You'll notice anything that is already an approved item has a photo here. Those that are not do not have a photo. And I'm just going to go ahead and send this over to my client. You can use Materio Pay, so we're not going to go deep on that today, but you can, charge via Materio and get paid through here, and everything is automatic. And that also can sync over to QuickBooks. You'll notice my invoice is syncing over right now on my deposit. So all of that can be done through Materio. Now that this is paid, I'm going to go ahead and just mark these as paid. Let's say they wrote me a check, that's there. Of course, that should happen automatically if you are using Materio Pay. So now that is paid, and in my selections workspace, I can now see that these are partially paid 78%, so that's great. And then if I head over to my scope of work, to my orders tab here, I can also see that I have some auto drafted purchase orders in the order section. And this just means anything that was approved is going to be drafted here into a purchase order so that I can go through the orders process. Now, typically I don't go this deep in a basics training, but because we're just going to keep going here today, I'm gonna go through with that. So we've got our tub here, for example. This tub has been approved, it's been paid for. I'm going to say that I've placed this order online. One thing that you'll notice, and let's actually start from the top here. You've got your vendor contact, you've got your billing address for your client. What we want to make sure for you, you need to make sure that you have a shipping address or service address. This is going to come from a few different places. You'll notice that my project site address, I don't have one on file, and that's because when I started my project, I skipped entering that address. This is a great place to see why that's important, because if you can put that address in when you're starting the project, then it's going to be here when we get ready to order and in case we need to deliver anything to the site. Of course, I also have my company address. I have some receivers that I work with, and you can always add in a new receiver. So let's say that this is going to Jim's Receiving. I want to make sure that I have the proper ship to address when I'm setting up my PO. You can also type in custom instructions to your vendor here. And if you're doing something like a COM form, you can add those attachments right here to go over to your vendor. And in this case, I'm actually just saying I placed this order online, and I'm really just trying to track that I've done that to keep up with the expenses and the process of my project. So I'm going to go ahead and upload a receipt. You can screenshot this. If you just ordered it online, I'm just going to upload an example here that's not going to match exactly. But what we're doing here is trying to make sure that everything on the right matches what's on the left, because this is what we've actually just paid, and this is what we're tracking in Materio. So we want to make sure that our expenses are up to date and our order information is up to date. So we're just going to double check everything. We're going to make sure our unit price is correct. Perhaps that actually went up a little bit by the time you ordered it. Perhaps there's actually more shipping than you expected. You're going to just customize these fields here, discounts, etc. You can all edit them so that you can have exactly what was the same of what you paid. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit confirm. And now this is confirmed. And in this case, I'm also going to record a payment because I just placed this order online. And I actually used my Amex to do so. So I'm going to track that. One thing I want to call out, I think this is one of the biggest time savers when it comes to using Materio's QuickBooks integration, is that if you're using our QuickBooks integration, you can actually set up your purchasing methods and put those here for your team to utilize. So maybe you have a specific card that's only used for FF&E. You can label those and your team can track when they make payments. Now, this is important and really efficient because what it does is it matches those transactions on the QuickBooks side. So it's really important that you set that up if you are using QuickBooks, and then it really helps save a lot of time from manual reconciliation. All right, so we've marked our item as paid and we're going to hit save. You'll notice that Materio is asking me if I want to update the status to ordered on this item. And in this case, I do. Thank you, Materio. I want to hit save. Now this is fully paid. Now, if I head back to my selections workspace, again, you'll see that this item is ordered. You'll also see this in your scope of work as ordered as well. So it's going to update that status throughout the system where it's really visible. And you're going to know, your team's going to know exactly where things are at. All right. Any questions specifically around ordering and getting things auto drafted, anything like that? Anything I can answer for anyone? No, you guys are so just with it today. Okay. Um, so now that I have that ordered, I'm gonna go through the rest of the process, I guess, here. So we're going to go to our orders tab. Now I could mark this as shipped from my selections workspace, but oftentimes if you are sending a purchase order, you're going to have multiple items on that order. So it's really helpful to be able to come over to your orders tab and track information here. So I'm going to go ahead and track a shipment down here where it says shipments. I'm going to hit add. And let's say I got that email, it's coming via UPS, it's coming, via tracking number that you got in your email. It actually is shipped today and it's expected next Thursday. And in this case, I actually want to just say that it's shipped. Now, if I had multiple items on here, you would get the option to you need to choose, did all of them ship? Did one of them ship? So this is great for splitting shipments on an order that has lots of items. So I'm going to just keep that as it is, and then I'm going to hit save. And again, Materio is asking me if I want to update the status of this item to shipped, and I do, so I'm going to hit save. Now it is going to, over here in my selections workspace, be labeled as shipped. If I click on this item, I'll also be able to see more information on my side. So I can see the PO that it was attached to. I can see the deposit that it was attached to. So you're able to see the connectivity of the items on all of the different documents that go into managing a project right from here. So just wanted to call that out. If you're ever looking for information, this is also another great place to come to see this information. All right, now I want to go through one last sort of important thing that I want you to explore while you're in your trial, while we have a few remaining minutes. And that is actually getting a schedule or specs out of Materio and onto, into your trades, to your team. So I'm going to go to that project that was a little bit more built out over here. And what we're going to do is, let's say we're in a moment where we need to get all of these bathroom finishes, and let's look at this by category. Let's say we need to get all of this plumbing over to our plumber. So I'm actually going to go to share. Now, share at the top right is a great place to kind of know and explore. This is the way that you can invite people in, get things out of the system, print a pull list, etc. That's all going to be through this share column. But what I'm going to do here is actually come in and create a view only link. So this link is going to allow me to share my schedules with my team, my trades, my contractor in a live fashion. All right, we're going to actually delete this one and redo it. So we're going to create a new link here. And in this case, I just want to show them the floor plan, and maybe I want to show them, this board that I have here. I'm going to name this plumbing, and I'm going to choose just the plumbing category that I want to hand off with all locations. So I'm going to hit save. This is going to create a link. You can copy this link, you can text this link, email this link, but also you can print a QR code that can go on your job site. It can go in a binder. It can go a place where your trades can access it. But what this link is going to take me to is a live view of the plan, whatever things I've shared with them. It's going to link to the items. So you can see that your trades don't have to log in. They can use the floor plan as navigation. They can see information. They can see pictures. They can see attachments that you've made, like this installation guide, right? They can see this information all without having to log in. So this is really, really helpful when it comes to getting that schedule out live. And now if things change, like for example, we have a lot of things that haven't been approved yet. those things, as they're approved and sent, will be here the next time that the person comes to look at the link, or if they refresh or they come back the next day. So this is really important because it allows you to skip that manual part of printing and the risk that something is going to be outdated and keep it live. And I know that our customers really, really love that part of the system, and they love being able to get it out in a really clear and visual way. Now, of course, you might be working with contractors who, don't want to view a link, or maybe you don't have great service or something and you want to print it. That's totally fine. We can also use the share tab here to print our selections, and we can choose what information we show. And this is also great if you are working with a builder and the builder is ordering part of the material selections. You can hand this over to them and say, here's vendor information, here's prices, and you can print this out. Materio is going to generate this nice looking document here with the photos, the information, SKUs, specs. And again, if you send over or save this as a PDF, you've got that link here that you can give to someone. So this is really great for also getting this out in a really clean way, which you're probably having to do manually right now, via a spreadsheet. So I just wanted to showcase those as some options as you're starting to think about the benefits that Materio can give you from organizing your project. It's not just planning, it's not just understanding budgets or resources. It really is about making sure you get those items and those materials out the door in the right way. All right, so we have 1 minute left. I did not go into timeline today. That's something that's more advanced. We do have a tutorial on timelines and task management on our YouTube channel. I definitely recommend checking that out. We also have individual videos on ordering and sending progress reports and all the things that go in. So I would definitely check out our Getting Started playlist on our YouTube channel. That'd be a great place to start. We didn't get into time tracking and commenting and all of that. So again, there's so much more that Materio can do to keep you organized. If you have specific questions about a feature that you're looking for or a workflow that you're looking for from your dashboard, you can always live chat our team down here at the very bottom by just clicking that. We are available within minutes, usually at 9 to 5 Central. But we are there also via email if you want to reach out with a list of questions. We are absolutely here for it. So I really appreciate everyone joining me today. And we will be sure to send a recording of this out as well. So, all right. Thanks, everyone.